system of friends around you. And
Yeah.
I love to have my friends help my partners plan my birthdays so that everybody gets it, everyone's happy. And my friends
Yeah.
love to do that and they're good at it. So there's a lot there that I think people can really, mull over and think about and maybe take some of those ideas to help improve their relationships as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think back in, when the it takes a village concept was created, as said in the book, it was about raising children. But I also think that we as a society, Western society in particular, have moved so far away from the concept of the village to expecting our partners to be the answer to all of our problems and all of our prayers, and that kind of isolationist tendency that things have moved toward means that you just suddenly have too high of expectations often on what one person can do in your life to complete you, which, is crazy. And so I love this idea of going, the pendulum always swings back and forth, right? Like it swings really far one way and then really far the other way, and then it comes back in the middle somewhere. And I feel like there's a middle that we've missed somewhere about how we rely on the tribe to make sure that we're living our best lives and not expecting one person to meet all of our needs, which is just so unfair on that person and ourselves, I think. So anyway, I love that concept, and it was one of several that I wanted to explore in the book. So there's your first little taste.
Ooh, I loved it. And I'm so interested and I guess in agreement with what you just said there. Because as we are looking for love, I'm doing this whole sort of limited series side podcast spinoff of Hot Topics Live called Dating After Divorce, right? And yeah, and I think one of these things that I consider when I'm talking about my experiences is pressure and how a partner, especially men, because a lot of my audience is men, so I always consider them and what their experiences are as well. And I think as the male, right, women tend to put a lot of pressure on them, especially because we're sold this Disney fairy tale storyline from the time we're born, basically, to be this princess and have this prince that's like completely flawless and a hero and like and everything. And we put so much pressure and expectation on our romantic partner that sometimes it can just kill the romance itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that kind of adjustment of expectations is a hard thing to do because it involves being honest with yourself, which a lot of people are quite bad at, about what you really want and need out of your life and out of your partner and out of just the way that you find joy in the day to day. And I think, there is that kind of idealized version of, oh, the Disney princess who the man just comes and takes care of everything. But at the same time, since we've grown up watching Disney princess stuff, women have become so much more empowered to, be the breadwinner, to be the one in charge of everything, to not need anyone. And so if you don't need the prince, then like, what's he good for at the end of the day? And so then there's like this kind of conflicting thing because men, I think, fundamentally are wired to want to be needed, which I totally get. But then, if you find these independent women who are like totally have their life handled, they're like, but now what do I do? And so I think we're in this like weird generation kind of sandwiched between a couple of different paradigms of what people expect, both men and women, from their relationships. And it's hard to navigate that sometimes.
I agree. And something else you read really got me thinking too. And it was about how she was taken for granted because she was doing all these traditional wifely roles and she began to feel taken I was going to say just now taken advantage of. Just like think about that because it kind of goes hand in hand that
Mhm.
expectation. Because something else you just said was, now women, and I'm a woman of the 90s, right? We were all girl power. We were all, women can do whatever guys can do. I can ask a guy out. I can earn the bacon, fry it up in a pan. Okay. Also, never let you forget you're a man, that kind of thing. That was like literally one of the ads I remember from being a young woman. And
Yeah.
it said something like that. And that was like the mentality, like, girl power, we can do anything. We don't need men. We're totally equal. But at the same time, we started doing these things and creating these independent lives. But also we have that traditional, we also came from that traditional, we're young enough to remember the traditional stay-at-home mom and have
Yep.
that taught to us too. So can cook, can clean, can do all these things, taught that that's what a woman's role was. But now we work. And so I think somewhere along the way, it got to the point where the expectation for women was to go to work, to be 50-50, to pay half of everything, but also to come home, to cook, to take care of the kids. And it's like a 24-hour job. You work two jobs,
Yeah.
24 hours a day, and you contribute financially. And it began to feel like, I think for a lot of women, just to clue you guys in who may not know this, that it's like, why? I'm better off on my own. This is why you see all these women who are single with cats and happy, right?
Exactly.
Because they're like, if I have to do everything, I don't want to have to take care of somebody as well.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's more work. Or I don't want kids because that's 3 times more work. Because you do
Exactly.
have to take care of your husband, you have to take care of your kids. These are all different roles. And then maybe you're the CEO of a company or a manager or whatever your role is,
Yeah. And,
working.
also at some point, like I'm 49. So, you in this age group, you have, kids that I don't have children, but many of my friends do, but you have kids that you're still taking care of. And then your parents are getting older. So you're supposed to be taking care of them too. And you're in that sort of sandwich generation where you're taking care of everybody. And at some point you're like, wait a minute, who's taking care of me?
Mhm.
And yeah, it's hard. It's there's a lot, like this moment in society with all of these kind of paradigms colliding means that's a question that I think a lot of women are starting to ask themselves, like, what is this all about? And where's and I think that's part of why you're seeing that like trad wife thing come back, where they're like,
Yeah.
no, I want somebody to take care of me. And I totally get that, especially right now. Like you can see I've got a broken elbow. Like, where's somebody to take care of me right now? That would sure be nice. But one of the things that I talked about in the first book was the difference between needing someone and wanting someone. And as a man, I would think, and I'm not a man, so maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that it would be so much more rewarding to be wanted by someone who doesn't need anything than to be needed by someone because she doesn't have a better option. And I think that kind of dynamic between being wanted and being needed is something that I think a lot of people struggle with too. So I don't know. It's interesting times.
I agree. Yeah, I've been seeing this trad wife trend, and I've done both. So I have some knowledge in both of those because, like I said, I grew up, and we're the same age, by the way. So
Yeah, that's it.
I know that you feel that whole 90s thing and how we were all girl power and we don't need men and stuff. But I have learned in my soft girl era that I'm in that it is important to need a man and have him feel needed and wanted, right? But not necessarily need him in the way that there's so much pressure on him. There's so much, you don't have a better option,
Right.
that kind of need. Because
Yeah.
I've seen those relationships too, and they always end up in a disaster. They
Yeah.
always end up in a disaster.
It One of the other things that I talk about in this new book is that back in the day, marriage was a business arrangement, right? Like you sold off your daughter to the man who was going to take care of her life and pay for her life, and that was just like you gave the dowry and the husband took over, and that was just the way that business worked, and nobody really expected love in that arrangement. If you got it, you were lucky, but nobody expected it. And now with this, like the Gen Z is like, I expect to get everything out of life that I want. And so there's something kind of in between where they're like, okay, well, and this is on the dating subject. I mean, I'm still on the apps and doing all the things. And on the apps, there are so many more choices for what you want on the apps today than there were when I started on the apps, some number of undisclosed number of years ago. But like now you can say like, I want monogamy, I want ethical non-monogamy, I want an open relationship, I just want to have fun. And it's just loud and out there with all of these different things that you can totally legitimately want. And I think even a decade ago, it was not okay to want some of those things. And so it's just like a really interesting moment where, because I think that of the Gen Zs in particular have this sense of entitlement on some level about, I deserve happiness, which our mothers and grandmothers certainly didn't have. Like that's shifting a lot of things too. And it's just a really interesting conversation about expectations and hopes and what you want from your life.
I agree. I agree. My kid is Gen Z, and when you talk about that sense of entitlement, I get that. So, but honestly, too, like speaking again about the traditional roles and wanting everything, right? I think they are onto something there because I do think you should want everything. You should go for everything, and I
Yeah.
think you should keep looking until you find, if not all of what you want, most of it, right? I don't
Yeah.
think you should settle, especially for partners and especially with the apps and there being so many choices. And now, we're well past COVID times. So you can go out and you're meeting people in person again as well.
Yeah.
And you have all of these options and ways to meet people and make connections. And I just think it's such a good time to keep looking for love,
Yeah.
you know?
I think the challenge now is that, especially in the app thing, is you can always keep swiping to find the next person. And so people's attention span has been reduced to that of a fruit fly.
Mm-hmm.
And what used to happen is, you met the people that were around you and that was it. Those were your choices. And so you were probably more prone to give someone a little bit longer of a chance to warm up a little, to see if maybe it could be something. And now you're like, I didn't totally love him next. And that kind of shopping experience online, I'm just gonna swipe to the next one, has made, I think, connecting with people harder, because like it does take a minute. Like there is nervousness in people when you meet them for the first time sometimes, and it's not always going to be like rainbows and unicorns and fireworks from the beginning, but that doesn't mean that there's not something there worth exploring. And I think that kind of ability to slow down